I would like to welcome John Oberg to the stage. Can I get a round of applause for John Oberg? John is presenting on utilizing the power of social media to help animals. John is a social media professional, influencer, and animal advocate dedicating to making the world a kinder place for animals by utilizing the power of social media. He recently launched his own independent project for animals through Patreon. Prior to that, John served as a director of new media and director of communications for various organizations in the animal advocacy movement. In both of these roles, John oversaw social media for the organizations, which led to a tenfold increase in both following, as well as over 1 billion views of content posted on these pages, respectively. John is also an advisor for plant dining partnerships. Let's hear it for John, everyone.
What's going on, everybody? Michigan VegFest. When I say food, you say coma. Food!
Coma!
Food!
Coma!
Food!
Coma!
There we go. I hope you're all in a food coma. I am. I made the great mistake of downing like 6 Italian meatballs right before this talk, so I'm not feeling great. But it's great to be here at Michigan VegFest. I am a native Michigander myself, so it's pretty cool to be here. I'm back speaking in front of my people. So I just want to give a little cheers to Veg Michigan. Give it up for Veg Michigan for setting this up. VegFests are pretty great because they bring community together and really bolster the community, and I think give a lot of new vegans or people interested in exploring veganism a route to do so. So during this presentation, maybe the first half is a little bit more about me, and then the second half is a little bit more in the weeds about how to use social media to help animals. But throughout the talk, feel free to take notes. So I want to talk about how I got my start in animal advocacy. And I got my start actually in Michigan. So I was born in Detroit, grew up in the surrounding area, and my mom and I were very, very close. And she was a single mother, and we were pretty poor. And so one of the ways that we would make ends meet was that we would go from trash can to trash can at Stony Creek Metro Park, and we would actually get the aluminum cans out of the trash cans, because as you all know, you get 10 cents. So in a good day, we'd get 10, 15, 20 bucks. And I'd usually do that with her before school every day. And it was something that, it was kind of a bonding experience for my mom and I. But in those early mornings, it was something that we saw that really played on our heartstrings, that really melted our hearts. And that was the deer who lived in this park. And we formed bonds with these deer. And unfortunately, one day, we discovered that they wanted to cull these deer who knew no fear. They had no fear of humans. And suddenly they were all going to be killed. And we were horrified by this experience. And so this was the late 90s, so I was about 8 or 9 or 10 years old. And I was very upset about it, but I didn't think I could do anything. But my mom, being the animal-saving badass that she was, she said, "Johnny, we're not gonna rest on our laurels. We're gonna do something about this." And so what she encouraged me to do and her to do with me was to create signs. So we created these big signs that say, "Being cruel isn't cool," and "Stop the deer hunt." And we went to the exits. Sorry, it wouldn't be a Detroit VegFest without an ambulance going by. So my mom and I, we went to the exits of this park, and we held these signs, and we got local media attention, and we were on the local news, and it was my first experience with animal activism. And up until this point in my life, I loved animals, but I thought that there wasn't much I could do to help them. And my mom taught me that when you see an injustice going on in the world, you do something about it. So that brings me to my next example of a big thing that played a role in my life early on, and that was my cat named Scoop. So Scoop was a Maine Coon cat who my mom and I adopted from Detroit when I was young, and he and I were we had a special bond. And I wasn't like a normal kid who would go hang out with his friends. I would hang out with my cat, Scoop. And we had this odd bond of, or I would create toys with him out of pipe cleaners. So that was weird. I actually remember going to Meijer and going to at the time they had a little tobacco section, and I would go and always buy pipe cleaners. I remember the guy just being so confused why this like 10-year-old was buying pipe cleaners. But anyway, fast forward a few years, and I was traveling, and my mom gave me a call and let me know that Scoop wasn't doing well. It turned out that Scoop had cancer in his paw. And we were heartbroken because Scoop was a really integral part of our lives. And then we made the decision to spend about $1,000 and get his arm amputated. And this is something that you have to do with cats, because if you just take off their paw, they try and walk on it. So we were like, we're gonna do it, hopefully he'll be okay. And fortunately, when he got out of surgery, he was just fine. But we knew that $1,000 was money well spent. And then that brings me to my next story. When I was traveling around Europe, and I was actually in the country of Finland, I was at an open air market in Helsinki. And I was about 20 years old at the time, and I want you to keep in mind that I loved animals all my life, but I made a big distinction between my love for animals and the food I was choosing to eat, and the animals who I was choosing to eat. And so at this open air market in Helsinki, Finland, there was a guy selling reindeer meat, prepared reindeer sausages. And we became buddy-buddy, and he's like, hey man, at 5 o'clock when I'm shutting down, because I know you're on a tight budget, come back and I'll give you whatever's left over. And I go back at 5 o'clock, and he throws literally like 10, 20 pounds of reindeer meat into a giant garbage bag, and I throw it over my shoulder. And he's like, hey, I'm going to the library, do you want to come with me? And I'm like, I don't have anything else to do, so sure. So he and I started walking to the library, and on this walk, he starts telling me about the activism that he's involved in. And I decided to take that moment to let him know that I was also interested in activism. And he says, well, John, what kind of activism do you want to get involved with? And I said, I want to be an animal activist. And he stops, and he looks at me and says, John, if you want to be an animal activist, you should also realize that you have a reindeer meat sack over your shoulder right now. And literally, I promise you, until this moment in my life, I had never once thought about the food that I ate and the animals that I ate. I had never made the connection, despite being like 20 years old. And so that was the kind of the final nail in the coffin, the thing that really made me realize that if I love, deer in a park, if I'm willing to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on surgery for a cat, then I should also take that love and compassion that I have for animals and apply it to the foods that I was choosing to eat. And so I went vegetarian on principle with the intention of eventually going vegan. Then I watched a film called Earthlings. Raise your hand if you've seen Earthlings. Okay, about half of you. Earthlings is an incredibly powerful film that describes the ways in which animals are being abused and exploited by humans. And it was so heartbreaking to learn. But I really learned a few powerful things by watching this film. I learned that farm animals, they don't live good lives with one bad day when they're sent to slaughter. Farm animals are living lives of horror from birth to death. And then the other thing I learned was that it's not just animals raised for meat. So it wasn't just chickens, pigs, cows, fish. It was also dairy cows. It was egg-laying hens. And these animals are being exploited in some of the worst ways possible. And so I knew then I had to go vegan and I had to become an activist. Because it made me realize, what is the difference between pigs? What is the difference between dogs? There isn't much difference. The difference is our perception. There's a really striking image that I posted on social media recently of a dog sticking their head out the window on a nice drive, and then a pig sticking their head out of a slaughterhouse-bound truck. And they are also enjoying the breeze. But unfortunately, one of those animals are going to a dog park, and one of those animals are going to a slaughterhouse. And that doesn't make that much sense to me. So why is it important to focus on vegan advocacy? Why is it important to eat vegan? Well, there are a lot of really great reasons, but one of the most striking, compelling reasons is the numbers, the sheer numbers. 99% of animals that are killed in the United States every single year are animals who are raised for food. 99%. And of that 99%, 99% of those are raised in factory farms. And so the sheer number of animals that are being abused for just to be eaten is really, really astonishing in the worst way possible. Another reason to focus on farm animals in your advocacy, another reason to choose vegan, is because of farm animal sentience. So it wouldn't be a big deal, perhaps, if we were eating rocks, because rocks don't have feelings. But chickens, pigs, cows, fish, and so on do. And then of course it's also the farm animal intelligence. These animals are so incredibly intelligent. An undercover investigator tells a story about how when they were undercover on a factory farm in a facility with mother pigs in gestation crates, they witnessed this mother pig learn to open her gate with her tongue. And when she entered the main area, instead of making a beeline for the exit, she went to every other crate and opened them for the other pigs. And so that really shows just how incredibly intelligent these animals are. And so it really is vital for us to try and get the general population to shift on the spectrum between standard American diet, also known as SAD for good reason, to veganism, moving along that spectrum. Obviously, we want everybody to be at this other end of the spectrum, but as much as we can just move people along the spectrum, those are big victories for animals. So that brings me to social media and how that plays a role in animal advocacy. So when I was living in Los Angeles, I lived there from 2016 to 2018, I used to go to these vigils outside of slaughterhouses. There's literally a slaughterhouse in downtown Los Angeles. And outside of the slaughterhouses, these trucks filled with dozens of pigs would stop for a couple of minutes. We'd get a little bit of footage, then they'd enter the slaughterhouse, and we'd never see them again. So one day, I got a video of a pig, and I swear to God, I made eye contact with this pig for 60 seconds. They were staring at me and my camera for 60 seconds. And so, unfortunately, that pig went into the slaughterhouse and was eventually killed. And later on, however, I took the video footage that I got of that pig and I uploaded it to Twitter, and the video's been seen 189,000 times. And so what is the powerful message there? The message is that we can take the horrors that these animals are experiencing and the video footage that's out there, and we can amplify that content to inspire people to make change for animals, and social media is a really powerful way to do so. And so in my last 10 years of using social media to advocate for animals, my content has been seen over 1 billion times. That's from posts on my own personal accounts, but also the accounts of the organizations who I ran previously. And I am not a magician. I do not have a PhD in social media science. I am just a regular person who looked at what was working on social media and what wasn't. And so you all have to realize that you are part of a movement like the animals have never seen before. Social media is essentially the new frontier for animal rights. And we all have an opportunity cost. So when we choose to do one thing, we're choosing not to do something else. And you have to really remember that when you're choosing to do anything in life. You are choosing not to do something else. So it's really important that we use our time wisely, and that includes when you're using your time on social media. And so what are some of the things that you can do on social media to help animals? One of the things you can do are share posts from others. So you don't have to necessarily create all of the content yourself. You can actually take the content that already exists from others and amplify that. So if you follow an activist on Twitter and you like the kind of content that they're posting, retweet them, amplify their content, engage in dialogue So when you see people posting about vegan food, or if you see people posting about meat, reply to these tweets, these posts, and so on, and tell them how you feel. Engage in dialogue, get conversation going. And tell your origin story. I can't tell you how often I don't see activists telling their origin. Testing. I can't tell you how often I see activists not talking about their origin story and talking about why they are vegan. Why are they the activists they are today? And I swear to God, every one of you have an amazing story. Talk about the great vegan food that you're eating. I think that's really important because everybody here has eaten some pretty damn good food today, and I think that you should tell all of your audience about that, because that really matters, because a lot of non-vegans out there think we eat nothing but raw tofu and grass. And for anybody walking around here, you saw a lot of amazing food today, and that is the kind of food that we are eating on a regular basis, and we need the non-vegan world to recognize that. Other things you can do on social media, use humor. So you don't even have to be that funny yourself. Repost a meme that somebody else did. Humor is a really great, unique way of reaching people. Of course, I think the most important part of using social media to help animals is to expose cruelty. Expose the cruelty that animals are facing, because again, 99% of animals that are being raised in this country are raised in these horrible factory farm conditions, and that less than 1% are still living in pretty wretched conditions as well. But farm animals just really, they have it so bad, and so we should really use our platforms to really amplify that content. Also, avoid the vegan bubble. So if everything in your news feeds are from other vegan activists or people like you, maybe vegan foodies, that's cool and all, but that's not really reality. We need to have a foot in reality to understand how the general public operates. Also, empower and inspire your audience. Don't just depress them. So we've talked a little bit already about some of the horrifying things that animals endure and experience in factory farms. And I'm not gonna beat around the bush. It's really bad. But don't exclusively depress them, okay? Also work to empower them, inspire them. Post a blend of different kinds of posts, both in types of posts, but also in the emotions of posts. So when you think about types of posts, you do videos, photos, links, text-only posts, polls, do a variety. Also a variety of emotions, so happy stuff, sad stuff, emotional stuff, educational stuff, funny stuff, and so on. And so don't be afraid to talk about factory farming one day and then come back to vegan food the next day. Also, this might seem counterintuitive, but have outside interests. If you are only posting about veganism 24/7, people are gonna start to tune you out. And don't just speak effectively. Every single day we can influence dozens, hundreds, thousands of people in a good way or a bad way. So it's really important that we use our time on social media wisely and our communication effectively. Also, don't be afraid that less is more. Literally, as much as I want to just post, dozens and dozens of paragraphs with every post talking about the different ways animals are being abused, sometimes just a single sentence with an emoji is what's going to get it done. Don't post too often or too little. If you post too much, people are going to get annoyed with you. Post too infrequently, people are going to forget that you exist. So try and find the middle ground. And don't be accusatory, okay? When is the last time you saw somebody being a jerk on social media and you're like, I want to be like that person? And don't put all of your vegan just eggs into one basket. What I mean by this is don't focus all of your efforts on social media on one single platform. Because if you do, and then that social media platform goes belly up or falls out of favor with the general public, you just spent all of that time building up your social media presence for nothing. And so it's really important to try and spread out your time wisely. I mean, when is the last time anybody here heard from Tom from MySpace? When it comes to dealing with trolls and endless debates, don't do it. It's not worth your time. Trolls love to goat us into endless conversations, but it is not a good use of your time. Remember what I said about an opportunity cost? It's really important to use your time as wisely as possible. And I also want to mention that when you are doing vegan activism on social media, you are only going to see the tip of the iceberg. And so I swear to you, if you are doing activism on social media, you are creating new vegans. You are creating a more compassionate world. Even if you don't see it, I promise you, you are doing it. So I'm going to leave you all with a quote from the late, great Maya Angelou, and that is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's important because as social media activists, as animal advocates who use social media, we need to make people feel something for the animals, because that is what's going to drive them to change for the animals. Thank you.